Hello, this is Joachim from Playing Piano with Chords. In this part 2 of the video series, we're going to look at the notes of the bass clef and learn a little tune to memorize them. It's based upon a chapter of the Playing Piano with Chords book, which comes with lots of audio and video content. Check it out at playingpianowithchords.com. Let's get started. Okay, so let's add the black keys. One thing you need to know first is the difference between half steps and whole steps. A half step is whenever you move from one key to the next key, left or right. Just one step. Starting on white, going to black, from black to white, from white to white, depending on where you start. If you're moving two steps, up or down, you have moved a whole step. And again, it doesn't matter where you start, just important that you're moving two half steps, which results in one whole step. That's it. Now, you have two ways of notating black keys. The first one is using sharps. And that's pretty easy. Sharps are these symbols that you see here in front of the notes that look a bit like hashtags. Whenever you see a sharp in front of a note, it tells you to move up one half step to the next key. So in this example, instead of playing C, you play C sharp, moving up one half step. And instead of G, you play G sharp, moving up one half step. So for the 5 black keys within each octave, there are 5 sharps to denote them. These are C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp. The exact same concept also works for flats, only that this time, instead of starting from below, you start from above the black key. So a flat tells you to move down a half step. Instead of D, you play D flat, or instead of A, you play A flat. Now here's a very important thing to notice. You can see that the 2 black keys you have arrived at are the same ones as before when you used sharps coming from below. So you can arrive at the same black key either from above using flats or from below using sharps. One key, 2 names. So the names of the flats are D flat, E flat, G flat, A flat, and B flat for the same black keys as before. In addition to that, there are 2 special cases concerning white keys. They only appear in certain key signatures and are pretty rare, but you should know them anyway. If you move from E to F, then usually you would call them E and F. But depending on the key signature, they might have different names. In this case, if you move from E to E sharp, you have to know that the note is just the same as an F, because that's where you arrive at if you move one half step. Same if you move down from F to F flat, you have arrived at E. The same thing can happen with B and C. Even though there are 2 white keys, the C might be called B sharp if you come from B, and the B might be called C flat if you come from C. Again, this is only in certain key signatures, but you should know it when you see it. Now let's look at the bass clef. The bass clef is actually a stylized F. And if you look at it, you notice that it surrounds the second line from the top, which is an F note in the bass clef. That's why it's also called the F clef. In the bass clef, the notes are notated differently than in the treble clef, because it's a lower register. The note you see here on top is middle C. And instead of being below the staff, as it was in the treble clef, it sits now above the staff. So it's the same note, but written differently. The notes we're going to look at now sit below middle C and are played by the left hand. Middle C in the bass clef actually looks like the high A with one ledger line in the treble clef. And this is one way to be able to read bass notes. If you know which note you would look at in the treble clef, just count down 2 whole steps and you have the right note name in the bass clef. Obviously, it's in a different octave, but the note name fits. Okay, now let's look at the notes on the lines again as we did before in the treble clef. The notes we get from bottom to top are G, B, D, F, and A. And you can memorize them with the sentence, "Great big dogs fight animals." The notes between the lines are A, C, E, and G. And you can use the sentence, "All cows eat grass," to memorize them. Here's another little tune, this time to memorize the notes in the bass clef. We're breaking down the notes into 3 different chords. The first one outlines the notes between the lines. The other chords consist of the notes on the lines. So starting with this chord, move down 1 step with the whole hand, back to the first chord, and then move up 1 step. This way all the notes are covered. Between the lines, on the lines, but without the top one, between the lines, and on the lines, but the upper 4 notes. Now, to make it more interesting, play the bass note first and the remaining 3 notes afterwards. If you have a pedal, use a pedal, play the chords softly, and it sounds quite nice already. This way you're playing 3 chords, A minor 7, B minor 7 flat 5, A minor 7 again, and G7. By the way, the sheet music I'm showing you here above the keyboard for this piece and the first piece is not the correct sheet music. It's just a help for you to remember the names of the notes that you're playing. To get the correct sheet music, just click on the link below the video and you will get it there. You can make this tune more interesting by improvising a little melody on top. Just use the notes A, B, C, D, E just above middle C and play them in any order you like. They will fit over the 3 chords and sound quite nice. So just play around with this music, use it to remember the notes in the bass clef, and you can also learn to improvise a bit, and together with the chords of the first video, you know 5 7th chords by now, which is also quite nice. Great! Now let's add the rest of the notes in the bass clef. The lowest note here is a C. Again, if you would look at it in the treble clef, it would be an A. Remember the A, B, C below the staff. But here in the bass clef, it's a C. Moving upwards, according to the alphabet, you get D, E, and F. And the E here looks like middle C in the treble clef. The F in the bass clef is the note that sits right below the lowest line of the staff. In the treble clef, it would have been a D. Moving upward, you have B right below middle C. And this B is the one that sits right on top of the bass clef. Moving further upward, you have D and E. And again, usually they would be played by the right hand, but it might happen as well in the left hand. Just as before in the treble clef, you arrive at the black keys in the bass clef by using either a sharp from below or a flat coming from above. Here are the 5 black keys written in the bass clef with either sharps or flats. Obviously this is only 1 octave, and if you move down you have different notes. And just as in the treble clef, you also see E sharp or F flat, or B sharp and C flat, depending on the key signature. Just know that you're moving up or down a half step. That's it. Now you know most of the notes in the bass clef as well, and if you put everything together, you can see how many notes you know by now. Here's an overview of the notes on the keyboard with note names and their correct notations in the treble clef and in the bass clef. You can still move further upwards or downwards on the keyboard, and doing that you would have to use additional ledger lines. You can also download this picture as a PDF file using the link below. If you like the video, make sure to check out the Playing Piano with Chords book at playingpianowithchords.com. In part 3, we're going to look at rhythm, note lengths, time signatures, and key signatures. You can also leave a little thank you in form of a PayPal donation at paypal.me/ppwchords. Thank you for watching.